If you've ever wondered why corporate America, Hollywood, Madison Avenue, and the media all seem to be obsessed with the youth culture, the answer is simple. The largest generation of young people since the 1960s is beginning to come of age. They're called echo boomers because they're the genetic offspring and the demographic echo of their parents, the baby boomers. Born between the early 1980s and the early 1990s, there are nearly 80 million of them. They're already having a huge impact on entire segments of the economy. And as the population ages, they'll become the next dominant generation of Americans. Who are they? What do they want? You'll be surprised. The oldest are barely out of college. The youngest still in grade school. And whether you call them echo boomers, Generation Y, or millennials, they already make up nearly a third of the U.S. population and spend $170 billion a year of theirs and their parents' money. Almost none of it on boring things like mortgages and medication.
Have a good evening, you guys.
And the world is falling all over itself trying to sell them things.
Thank you.
What brands do you guys love?
Sony, dude.
Patagonia.
Gap. Gillette.
Aveda. I feel like
Only a small percentage are eligible to vote, yet they're already one of the most studied generations in history by sociologists, demographers, and by marketing consultants like Jane Buckingham of the Intelligence Group, who uses focus groups like this one to gather information for clients like NBC, Chanel, Nike, and Levi Strauss.
How much time would you guys say you spend on the internet a day?
a couple hours a day.
A couple hours? Who would say more than TV?
Oh, yeah.
Which do you like better?
Internet.
They're a reflection of the sweeping changes in American life over the past 20 years. The first to grow up with computers at home in a 500-channel TV universe. Multitaskers.
Hello.
With cell phones, music downloads, and instant messaging on the internet. Totally plugged-in citizens of a worldwide community.
Are you connected from the moment you get up?
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have iPods?
Yes.
Of course. They're required by law now in the subways.
They're giving them away at Duke.
Nick Summers and Andy Gissing are both college seniors and editors of their college newspapers. Nick at Columbia and Andy at Middlebury College in Vermont. And as such, they are both in touch with the Echo Boomer ethos.
Who are you? What do you like? What do you want?
I would say that my generation tends to be very, very overachieving, overmanaged.
Pressured?
Very pressured.
I would agree with that. A lot of people work hard or want to do well, I guess.
And it's no wonder they feel that way. From the time they were toddlers, they've been belted into car seats and driven off to some form of organized group activity. After graduating from Gymboree and Mommy and Me, they've been shuttled to play dates and soccer practice with barely a day off by parents who felt their kids needed structure and a sense of mission. Dr. Mel Levine is a professor at the University of North Carolina and one of the best-known pediatricians in the country. He says it's had as much to do with shaping this generation as technology.
They've been heavily programmed. The kids who have had soccer Monday, Kung Fu Tuesday, religious classes Wednesday, clarinet lessons Thursday, whose whole lives have really been based on complying with what some adult tells them to do.
This is a group of people that wants to please.
They wanted to please their parents, their friends, their teachers, their college admissions officers.
A generation in which rules seem to have replaced rebellion. Convention is winning out over individualism, and values are very traditional.
Who here thinks they'll get married? Who here thinks they'll have kids?
They're the most diverse generation ever. 35% are non-white, and the most tolerant, believing everyone should be part of the community.
How many of you believe in gay marriage? Everybody, no issue.
Historian Neil Howe, along with co-author William Strauss, has made a career studying different generations. And he says all the research on echo boomers always reflects the same thing, that they're much different than their self-absorbed, egocentric baby boomer parents.
Nothing could be more anti-boom than being a good team player, right? Fitting in, worrying less about leadership than followership. If you go into a public school today, teamwork is stressed everywhere. team teaching, team grading, collaborative sports, community service, service learning, student juries. I mean, the list goes on and on. One of the impacts that Boomers had on...
Hal thinks they're more like their grandparents, the great World War II generation, more interested in building things up than tearing them down.
When you ask kids, what do you most hope to achieve there? Where they used to say, I want to be number one, I want to be the best. Increasingly, they're saying, I want to be an effective member of the team. I want to do everything that's required of me.
And you can already see some results. Violent crime among teenagers is down 60 to 70%. Tobacco and alcohol use is at an all-time low. So is teen pregnancy. 5 out of 10 Echo Boomers say they trust the government. Virtually all of them trust mom and dad. How many of you get along with your parents really well?
Oh, love them. Yeah. Totally.
They're your best friends?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Don't want to leave home. Exactly.
Through sheer numbers, they're beginning to change society. They've affected school construction, college enrollment, product development, media content, and according to marketing consultant Jane Buckingham, they're changing the way things are sold from clothing to cars because mass marketing doesn't always reach them.
They're not watching the traditional networks as much because they have so many choices. They're playing on the internet, they're playing video games, they're out and about shopping a lot. So the traditional 30-second commercial isn't always working the way it was.
They're the most sophisticated generation ever when it comes to media. They create their own websites, make their own CDs and DVDs, and are cynical of packaged messages. They take their cues from each other. A well-placed product on one of their pop idols like Paris Hilton or Ashton Kutcher can launch a brand of $40 T-shirts and trucker hats.
Where'd you get this shirt?
At a thrift shop.
In a thrift shop?
Yeah. So it's... But,
He likes vintage.
Yeah.
Buckingham employs the services of 1,500 young people scattered around the country and relies on their regular reports on what's hot and what's not to keep her and her clients ahead of the latest trends.
It's very nice. Very cool.
One of the things with this generation is word of mouth. Buzz is more important today than it's ever been, and that can get started on the internet. That can get started just through friends, and it's very hard for a marketer to tap into that in a product that they like.
Toyota is already betting hundreds of millions of dollars that it can create that buzz and launching an entire new division aimed exclusively at Echo Boomers.
They've affected clothing, they've affected beverage, and now they're just about to affect car business.
Jim Farley is head of Toyota's Scion division, which is quietly peddling its new $15,000 cars with air conditioning and power windows by sponsoring events like this street basketball tournament / breakdance festival, where they always have cars on hand for people to look at and sometimes even test drive.
People kind of just stumble on our product, and it's cool that way.
And you do that intentionally?
Absolutely. This is like regular car companies are on TV. This is our regular activity. This is how we expose our cars to young people.
70% of Scion's promotional budget is being spent on events like this one, only 30% on traditional advertising. And much of that is being spent on the internet, where Echo Boomers can fill out a Scion order form, customize their car with 40 different options, and drop off the form at the dealership without ever hearing a sales pitch. It's early yet, but Farley says Scion is meeting its sales projections.
How big a wager is Toyota putting on this that it's going to be successful?
Well, I think how we've looked at it, Steve, honestly, is that we can't afford not to do this.
Echo Boomers have their own television network, the WB, and their own stores with multimedia presentations, even disc jockeys to lure them inside the door. It's a generation used to being catered to.
They are more protected. They regard themselves as collectively special because of the time in which they were raised.
Why do they consider themselves special?
Because they came along at a time when we started revaluing kids. During the 60s and 70s, the frontier of reproductive medicine was contraception. During the 80s and beyond, it's been fertility and scouring the world to find orphan kids that we can adopt. The culture looked down on kids. Now it vaunts kids, it celebrates them.
They're the most watched over generation in history. Most have never ridden a bike without a helmet, ridden in a car without a seatbelt, or eaten in a cafeteria that serves peanut butter.
sometimes they don't know what to do if they're just left outside and say, well, just do something by yourself for a while. You know, they'll look around stunned, you know, as if, you know, what are we supposed to do now?
As my mother used to say, go outside and play.
Right. They are not told that. They are not told that.
They're hovered over by what college administrators call helicopter parents.
You need to hold mommy's hand.
Protected and polished trophy children in every sense of the word.
Everyone is above average in our generation.
Everybody gets a trophy at the end of the year. It's something you're used to, and you have the rows of trophies lined up on your windowsill or whatever. And
Parents feel as if they're holding on to a piece of baccarat crystal or something that could somehow shatter at any point. And so parents really have a sense their kids are fragile, and parents therefore are protecting them, inflating their egos, massaging them, fighting their battles for them.
Dr. Levine, who is considered one of the foremost authorities in the country on how children learn, is now researching a book on young people entering their 20s. He's concerned that groupthink is stifling initiative, and because they've always been rewarded for participation, not achievement, they don't have a strong sense of what they're good at and what they're not.
When a young person shows up at work today for their first job, what do they expect and what are they finding?
They expect to be immediate heroes and heroines. They expect a lot of feedback on a daily basis. They expect great inflation. They expect to be told what a wonderful job they're doing. They're going to be sort of allowed to rise to the top quickly, that they're going to get all the credit they need for everything they do. And boy, are they naive. Totally naive in terms of what's really going to happen.
Levine says that's not the only part of their cultural conditioning that's going to require an adjustment in the workplace.
I talked to the CEO of a major corporation recently, and I said, what characterizes your youngest employees nowadays? And he said, there's one major thing. He said, they can't think long range. Everything has to be immediate, like a video game. And they have a lot of trouble sort of doing things in a stepwise fashion, delaying gratification, really reflecting as they go along. I think that's new.
He calls the phenomenon visual motor ecstasy, where any accoutrement that doesn't produce instant gratification is boring. As they grow up, they'll have to learn that life is not just a series of headlines and highlight reels.
You call someone on your cell phone and they don't pick up, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, that's almost what, you know what, we could be the now generation. I mean, if you think about it, everything is now with us. I mean, it's like expedite the FedEx. Make sure the phone has a camera on it so you can take a picture of the car when you get a dig. It's everything, and it's almost like just everything.
So instant. What would you call your generation?
Perfect.